saying he was too old to run an internet company. This morning, there's news its negotiations to do that on the Hong Kong exchange have broken down, and now Alibaba is ramping up to do its initial stock offering in New York instead. The BBC's Linda Yu has been following the story. Good morning.
Good morning.
Give me a sense of why Alibaba is switching the initial public offering to New York.
The founder, Jack Ma, he wants to be like Mark Zuckerberg. He wants to be a minority shareholder. You don't control most of the votes, but you get to control the company. Hong Kong doesn't allow it, but New York does.
Now, there are a couple of other name brand companies that have big stakes in Alibaba and therefore really want this IPO to succeed so they can get richer.
I think you're referring to Yahoo. Yahoo has a big stake in Alibaba, and I think one of the things to certainly watch for is whether or not Alibaba, wherever it IPOs, has a valuation that sticks. Because, it's a big company, the world's biggest e-commerce company, but we've all seen what happens after an IPO like Facebook. You can get it quite wrong, and then you get a lot of egg on your face, especially for other shareholders which are already there, like Yahoo.
Yahoo was the big one that I was thinking of, and also apparently Japan's SoftBank is another big one that is watching this very, very closely.
Yeah, indeed. And one of the other things to watch for is when Jack Ma does, well, of course, he's stepping back. He's not the CEO, Jonathan Liu is, but Jack Ma, I think, is pretty much in the driving seat. So will he be able to buy out some of Yahoo? SoftBank presumably still be in there. So I think this IPO has a lot more at stake than just the valuation. It's about the future governance of this huge company and the role these other investors will play in the future.
The BBC's Linda Yu. Linda, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the slug, alms for the not-so-poor. For the first time since the Great Depression, private U.S. companies can advertise when they're trying to raise money, not to everyone, but to millionaire investors. Marketplace's Sabri Benishore reports.
Surrounded by boxes of pickles, beets, and okra, Rick Field samples his product in his warehouse-like office.
Well, this is our new KO pickles. Kosher, organic, K for kosher, O for organic pickles, which we're launching as we speak right now.
Rick's Picks is now enjoying a freedom private companies haven't had for 80 years, the freedom to ask the public for investment. He's looking to raise more than $1 million.
So we're going to start working on our own website and then spread naturally out from there into social media.
Rick's Picks has already set up a web page with Circle Up. It's a company that connects private firms with accredited investors. Those are people who are worth $1 million or more. Rory Eakin is Circle Up's COO.
Only accredited investors can invest. So it's not very cost effective for startups to have a large advertising campaign.
That may change, though. Mass marketing could start next year, when regulators are expected to let private companies ask any American for investment. In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore for Marketplace.
Now let's do the numbers. The FT100 index in London is down 0.2% right now. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all down slightly at the moment. We haven't forgotten that what is arguably the most powerful financial policy job in the world remains unfilled after January. Former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers took himself out of the running for Federal Reserve Chairman the other day. He was worried about the confirmation fight. Marketplace regular and Fortune magazine senior editor-at-large Alan Sloan bumped into someone else who might want the job. Good morning, Mr. Sloan.
Good morning, David.
So the White House hasn't said who they would really like to run the Federal Reserve, but a lot of talk about one name, Janet Yellen, who's the current vice chair. And you've actually bumped into her?
Right. In the spring, there was a business writers convention, and I got to spend a whole bunch of time with her. And in person, she's a lot funnier and nicer than the public personality that you read about.
The two of you have something in common?
Right. Well, she comes from Brooklyn, and she has an accent. I, of course, have no accent whatever.
Yeah, I had no idea you're from Brooklyn. So when you're sitting there next to Janet Yellen, who just might end up holding the most powerful economic policy position in the world, did you get a sense that she was very concerned about a healthier economy?
Oh, yeah, very much so. And I asked her the question I've been dying to ask the Fed, which was, all of your low interest rate things are great in theory, but there are a whole lot of people, especially retirees, who were used to getting 4% and 5%, and now suddenly they're getting nothing. What do you think of that? And her answer wasn't a bad answer.
The reason we think it's in the best interest of the economy overall is because we think it's a way to stimulate a faster economic recovery. And we think that that's going to be good for virtually everyone in the economy, even including those who are suffering from low returns on their CDs.
You know, interest rates are very, very low. It's very hard to get a meaningful amount of income from your saved capital.
And the current Federal Reserve vice chairperson seems sensitive to this.
Yeah, well, she gave it an answer, and it's a coherent answer. And in person, she's much better at explaining things than in her speeches, where she defaults to Fed speak and economic ease.
And maybe part of the job is to be able to speak that special version of ancient Greek. Alan, thank you.
My pleasure.
Alan and Janet Yellen's appearance was on C-SPAN, by the way. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
The fuck is that? Shit! I'm dying in this fucking country-ass, fucked-up town.
like, what do you do all day?
Clock ticks on Washington budget battle.
We could easily blow past that deadline.
Brainpower moves an artificial limb.
Pretty amazing experience because I hadn't moved my ankle for 2 years.
America's Cup stays home.
Bar none, the best comeback victory of all time.
Good morning. I'm Steve Kathan with the CBS World News Roundup. Washington's prolonged game of high-stakes poker is pushing up against the deadline early next week to fund the government. CBS's Nancy Cordes says the Senate is fashioning a spending plan that's much different than the one approved by the House.
They'll try to wrap up their votes on this funding bill by the end of the week, maybe get it to the House on Saturday. But that's just 2 days before the deadline. And then House Republicans have a decision to make. They need to decide whether to just accept the bill as is, accept that their attempt to defund Obamacare didn't work, or whether to try to slip something else into the bill, something a little bit less controversial, and then send that back to the Senate. That's a risky strategy.
And the Treasury Department says the government is closer to running out of money than first thought, with crunch time starting to hit about the middle of next month. Overseas, American experts are now on the job in Kenya, the scene of the mall terror attack. CBS's Charlie D'Agata in Nairobi.
Forensic teams from the United States and Europe joined the investigation, sifting through the rubble, gathering evidence. Bomb disposal teams from the FBI began fingerprint, DNA, and ballistic analysis to help determine the identities of the victims and the al-Shabaab gunmen.
On the heels of that attack, the State Department has renewed a global terror alert for U.S. citizens. New images of Aaron Alexis are on TV and in newspapers all across the country this morning as the FBI released surveillance video from the Washington Navy Yard on the morning of the massacre that left 12 dead. CBS's Bob Orr.
Now, investigators say the rampage was not directed at any particular person. While Alexis, it turns out, was disciplined on the job just 3 days before the attack, there's no evidence he targeted his boss, his coworkers, or anyone he'd even met.
Alexis left a note saying he was driven to kill by months of bombardment by low-frequency radio waves. There's new attention on the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, criticized in the Guns to Mexico scandal. Now the issue is tobacco. Live to CBS's Heather Bosch.
The ATF lost track of 2.1 million cartons of cigarettes. It was using them in undercover operations to track illegal tobacco sales between 2006 and 11. A government report also says the agency misused about $162 million in profits from those stings. The ATF claims it lost less than 500,000 cigarettes and has tightened procedures. The ATF came under fire for losing track of guns the agency sold to traffickers when some of those weapons were found at the murder scene of a U.S. Border Patrol agent.
Secretary of State John Kerry meets with his Iranian counterpart today in New York. It comes amid Iran's call for new talks on its nuclear program. Michael Rubin at the American Enterprise Institute says conditions are right for Iran to deal.
There's been a consistent change in Iranian rhetoric over the last 6 months, which indicate that far from the Iranian defiance that sanctions are having no effect, They're hurting, and they're hurting badly.
Ex-teacher Stacy Rambold leaves a Montana prison today after serving 30 days for rape, a sentence that sparked outrage and led prosecutors to appeal. The judge who issued it is under fire. He said the 14-year-old victim, who later committed suicide, was older than her chronological age. Marion Bradley of the National Organization for Women is leading a petition effort to get him off the bench.
He went into victim blaming and blamed this young girl and said her rape was not like we see in the movies. Excuse me? I mean, what we see in the movies is Hollywood. This is real life.
The Montana Judicial Commission is looking into all of this. Science fiction is now science fact. Researchers say a man using brain power has been able to control his artificial leg. Here's CBS's Dr. John LaPook.
4 years ago, Zach Vaughter lost his right lower leg in a motorcycle accident. After years in a regular prosthetic leg, he's been testing the first one controlled by brain waves.
I seamlessly walk up to a set of stairs and just go up, foot over foot, up the stairs like you do. Whereas with my normal prosthetic, I kind of have to drag it behind me as I go up the stairs.
When a person thinks about moving, a signal is sent from the brain down through the spinal cord. These impulses control the muscles. After an amputation, the muscles are no longer there, but the nerves are. Zach underwent surgery to move these nerves to his hamstrings. Sensors relay these nerve signals to a computer in the leg, which instructs the knee and ankle how to move.
And the simplest way to explain it is we've rewired him.
Researcher Levi Hargrove and a team at the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago engineered the device.
So you just think about moving along. The device pushes you along, pushes you upstairs, helps control you when you walk downstairs, and it does everything in a seamless manner.
The hope is that in 3 to 5 years, many more people will be able to get this new leg. Dr. John LaPook, CBS News, New York.
Congressional debate and the October 1st launch of insurance exchanges has a lot of people talking about the health care reform law again. CBS's Dan Raviv on a website and app that can help deal with confusion.
A senior editor at Consumer Reports, Nancy Metcalf, says healthlawhelper.org can help the millions of Americans who obviously don't understand their choices, including the poor who haven't had health insurance.
If your income is very low, we say you are likely going to be eligible to get Medicaid in the state that you live in, and here's how to apply for it.
You fill in your income category, what state you live in, size of your family, do you have a job offering insurance, and the website gives you a list of options tailored for you. healthlawhelper.org. Dan Raviv, CBS News.
Former President George H.W. Bush served as an official witness at a same-sex wedding last weekend in Maine. His spokesman says 2 women, longtime friends of Mr. Bush, tied the knot. Well, a sports comeback for the ages on the water off San Francisco. America's Cup stays here.
Water cannons and chants of USA greeted the Oracle catamaran as it sped across the finish line to cap an extraordinary comeback. Down 8-1, Team USA keeps the cup by winning 8 do-or-die races in a row.
This is the most improbable turnaround that has ever been done in sports.
I'm a sport fanatic, and I've never seen anything like this. Thousands thronged the waterfront to see America somehow hold on to the oldest trophy in international sports. The America's Cup! Doug Sovereign, CBS News, San Francisco.
SAT scores have held steady for a 3rd year in a row. CBS's Jim Shenevy has more on the students taking the tests.
The College Board is out with its latest report on college and career readiness, and the figures show some cause for concern. Jim Hull is a senior policy analyst with the National School Board Association's Center for Public Education.
According to the College Board in this year's results, about 43% of the 2003 test takers are prepared for the rigors of college curriculum.
If 43% are ready, that means 57% are not. Those who don't meet the benchmark are less likely to achieve at least a B- average in their first year in school, a key indicator of college success. Jim Shenevy, CBS News.
It's all about the Benjamins at the Federal Reserve. In a move to foil counterfeiters, a new $100 bill is coming out. Ben Franklin is still on it, but it has a color-changing inkwell, more texture, and a 3D security ribbon. That's the World News Roundup. I'm Steve Kathan, CBS News.
Jonathan just got an awesome face paint job. What do you think?
I like turtles.
We do when someone wants to pass us. We blow them off the road. Before we start, we turn on the radio. Now turn at the corner. Like a hold the wheel.
Even
Even if you can't hold up, your hair will with Final Net. In concentrated pump or new aerosol. The only aerosol with Final Net's all-day hold. Final Net.